Okay, now we have established the ceiling, the floor, the left and the right walls. Now that we have done that, let's go ahead and add openings that are in the walls, like things that are on the actual walls themselves, like doorways and windows. Let's start with drawing some windows. So the first thing to do is I think we should draw the window that is closest to us. We could, with this project, I want you to use your like rough sketching skills to place things where you would roughly want them to be in the room. So I'm going to demonstrate right now. I am going to put 2 windows along the left hand wall. Okay, so I want some space below the window. I don't want it to be a huge window because it is a bedroom. Okay, and I would like some degree of privacy. Let's just say like this is a home that's close to other homes, so you don't want humongous windows in a bedroom. So I'm going to draw 1 window here, and then I'm going to just, you see how I slanted my line downward for the top of that window and then slanted my line slightly upward for the bottom. I'm going to do that because I'm going to guess that using vanishing point 2 on the opposite side to draw the top and bottoms of the window will create that angle. So I'm just going ahead and guessing at what that angle might look like. I might be accurate, I may be totally off, but I'm just trying to just remind myself of the fact that those should be angled lines. They should not be horizontal lines. There's no horizontal lines in your actual drawing here besides the horizon line itself. So no horizontal lines right now. You may use vertical lines for the sides of the windows, the left and right side, the length of the window. Make sure you leave enough wall all the way around at the top and at the bottom. So I want these windows to basically be the same size window. You don't have to have it be the same size window, but just for the sake of keeping it simple, let's just say they're the same size. But you're not going to draw them as the same size because they are in perspective. And the closer that something is to this far corner right here in the middle of the paper, the smaller it will have to be drawn. So now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make sure that all my vertical lines are parallel to all other vertical lines in this drawing. So you can compare it to that center of the wall, the corner line. You can compare it to the side edge of the center paper line, but make sure that those verticals are perfectly vertical. Even if you have to hover your head right above the drawing, and that's the best way, if you just hover your head right above the area you're drawing, so you know that you are making that line straight. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my rough lines with a more permanent and neat line using my straight edge or my ruler. Okay, so let's say I want that window to be right here and be right here. Okay, so I'm making a little line segment to represent the left side of this very near window, furthest to the left. Okay. Now, in order to draw the side of that window, I'm going to use another vertical line, and I'm going to just hover above my drawing and just draw a vertical line. I don't know how much shorter the second line is going to be, but my vanishing point lines will show me where to end that line. So this is what I mean. Line up the one end of the ruler with vanishing point 2, and then the other end with vanishing point, with the bottom point right here on this line. And so, well, this line here doesn't reach all the way, so make it reach all the way, just hand draw it in. This line will show you where the 2 intersect should be the corner of the window. So then you can erase any lines that kind of stick out past that corner. And here as well, you could just clean up your lines as you go along. Now for the top of the window, I decided to make the top a little bit like lower. So that's why my sketch doesn't really apply here. But I'm going to take my ruler and put it right on the point at the top of my vertical line on the left. Align the other end with vanishing point 2 and draw to the corner. And now I have drawn this window in the correct 2-point perspective. But here's something that we did not do. We could have drawn both windows almost at the same time, because if they are indeed the same size window, you can take the line that you drew for the bottom of the window and then just kind of draw a line right here in the vicinity of the second window, right near the bottom of that window. And the line that you drew to represent the top of the window, you could draw that kind of in the area of the top of the second window as well. You'll notice that the space is actually narrower there because it's in perspective. That window, those vanishing point lines will make the window get narrower and narrower and narrower as it goes toward this center line here. This is where you're kind of on your own, and it's up to you to use your judgment, okay? For the vertical lines for the sides of your window, just hover your head, make sure that your lines are neat and vertical, and make the vertical lines here spaced just a little shorter. You can use the ruler to measure, so this window is about 1 inch wide. So over here, the window should be less than 1 inch wide. How much smaller? It's up to you. There's really no perfect formula that I'm using to determine that. And this line here is very crooked, so let me just fix that. Just make sure that your lines are parallel and this window looks just noticeably narrower than this window because it's further away. If you do not draw with vanishing point lines at the top and the bottom of your windows are not going to look like they're on that wall. They're going to look like they're sitting on a different perspective wall. They're just like kind of like, you know how some windows you can like open them up so that the glass kind of opens up? It's going to look like that kind of window where the whole front of the window looks like it's at a different angle than the wall, which is not going to be correct in this case. So we're just going to do a double hung window. That's kind of window which has a piece of glass at the top and a piece of glass at the bottom, and you would push up from the bottom to open up that type of window, double hung window, right? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Now, so let's do that. Let's cut that window into 2 panes of glass. So we're just going to, this is not an architectural drawing. This is not a very accurate technical drawing to the point of being so realistic that it can give that kind of information to someone who's a construction person, who's going to be a builder. This is just a artistic representation using some of these concepts of perspective. So it's not going to have every detail and every accurate everything's not going to be accurate. Some things are, but we're not going to go into so much detail or to be 100% accurate because that would take us forever. So I just want to show you how to find the center of these windows so that we could draw a line, 2 lines. Remember, when we're drawing more realistically, instead of using a single line to show, let's say, an object, you have to at least use 2 lines to show the thickness or the width of an object. So we're going to draw like a little double line as a divider that divides the 2 pieces of glass for the window. So we're going to go to the first rectangle on the left, go to the corners, and draw a line from one corner to the opposite corner. And what I'm showing you is a little trick to find the center of a rectangle in perspective, especially if the rectangle is not facing straight out. If it's in at some sort of an angle, how do you find the center of something like that? You crisscross at the corner. So I'm going to draw another line diagonally from corner to corner. And where the two lines meet, like as an X, right where they meet in the middle is the dead center. So then I'm going to draw a line a little bit, oh, and you have to use vanishing point 2. So let's draw a line a little above that center line. And when you draw it also on your other window. Slide the ruler and draw it also on your other window too. And try to do both windows at the same time so you can save on time. Now I want you to use vanishing point 2 again, but lower the ruler just a little bit to draw your second line. Okay, so now what that double line does is it cuts your window into 2 pieces of glass. Erase the little X in the first window. That was just to help you to figure out the center. You know that if this second window is the same window as the one on the left and it's in line with that, you can use that center line, that vanishing point 2 line on both windows. Okay, so right at the center of the window, you might still be able to see the X from last time. I want you to draw a little half circle to represent the little lock for the window. Now for here, we can't tell what the center will be unless we crisscross actually here. So let's do that crisscross technique to find the center of this smaller window on the left-hand wall here. And now we found the center. Right above the X, put a little half circle, but draw it smaller than the window on the left because that everything in the window on the right should be drawn a little bit smaller because it's further away. Erase the little guidelines or the X. Remember, that's a neat little trick to find the center of a box in perspective, even at whatever angle. It is on whatever angled wall. You could find the center of it using by crisscrossing from opposite corners, okay? Now you have the opening of the window and you have the window divided into 2 panes. Now let's draw the little frame or the molding around the window. So what we'll do is to just draw some vertical lines. Okay, if you draw the molding really big, then it's going to make the window look very, very big. So try to keep the molding kind of like thin, but not too super skinny. Not as skinny as a little noodle or anything. And then make the other one a little bit thinner because, like I said, this window on the right side is supposed to be further away. Okay. For the top and bottom of the molding, I want you to use vanishing point 2 lines and just make sure that the lines all meet up at the corner. So if you have to like draw a little bit, the line a little bit further up or down to meet that top and bottom vanishing point line, then go ahead and extend those lines. Also, when you draw the top and bottoms of the smaller window all at the same time, since both windows are they're in line with one another, so you might as well draw that window too. Okay, you don't have to draw them separately. You could get it done all at once. That's what I'm saying. Now, I'm going to go over here and draw the left side of this window, making sure I make it just a little bit narrower than the spacing on the left. Make this window here a little bit, on the right, a little narrower, the spacing around, of the frame. And the same here, just to show that it's in perspective. Okay, So extend your lines out to create nice 90-degree corners. Erase any lines that extend out past the corners and just kind of clean up the drawing as you go along. So now you have a nice little frame around the window. So at the corners, you see how it looks like a bigger rectangle with a smaller rectangle on the inside? Connect the corners, the inside corner with the outside corner of the larger rectangle with a little diagonal line. Why do I do that? Because most windows, most molding around windows and doors have this 45-degree cut to the little pieces of wood that make up that molding. And that's how they are all pieced together at the corners. So let's do that as well to make it look realistic. Okay. Okay, so we just finished connecting the corners. The windows look good, but they still look a little flat. So to make them more three-dimensional, since we're pretending that this is a representation of a three-dimensional room, we are going to draw yet another very, very thin vertical line on the left side of this left window here. We don't know how long it should be, so let's just make it a little bit longer than the window on the top and the bottom. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the very outside of our door or of our window molding right here at this corner here, and we are going to line up our ruler with vanishing point 1, which is actually pretty close by. It's right over here, to draw a tiny short line that connects the outer corner with this line that we just drew on the very outside. And then we're going to tilt our ruler upwards to draw the same line up at the top of the window's corner, like that. It's a very, very small detail. So I will draw like basically what's going on up here. So this line is pointing downward at a slight angle, and this line over here, this tiny little line segment we drew, is slightly pointing upward. Okay, and that is the angle of those little short lines. Do the same with your second window. And what it does is basically it describes that even the window molding itself has a thickness in this world because it's a three-dimensional world that we are creating in our drawing. Do the same thing at the corners. Use vanishing point 1 to finish drawing the edge. Basically, we're drawing the edge of that window molding. Okay, you can draw with a ruler, or you could just draw it by hand if you're pretty good with hand drawing. Okay, so now it looks like, wow, the windows are popping out. The window frames are more three-dimensional. They have a thickness to them. Okay, now on the opposite side of the window, what I'm going to draw is yet another line. This time it's going to be a little bit thicker and even thicker on the left side here. Try to keep your lines vertical. And what that represents is there's a lot of structure around windows on the inside of the house as well as the outside. So that represents structure of the window on the outside. It could also represent some of the building material that might be outside that you see that is that covers the surface of the outside of your home. So a little view of that. Okay. The window might also be kind of set slightly into the building material. So it's just showing that aspect of it. Now what you're going to do is draw the top, just a little bit of the top of that window. You should be able to see up and underneath, kind of like the top of the frame of the window. So I'm going to draw let me slide my ruler over. And I'm going to draw just a little thin line. I don't have an exact measurement, but you're not going to see very, very much as you look up and underneath the top of this window. So where these two inside lines cross, I want you to connect that corner to this inside corner over here, the second corner on the inside, with a straight line. Don't worry if the angle does not look similar, if it's a totally different angle than the angle of the window molding here. They actually are not related at all. They have nothing to do with one another. Just connect the inside corner to that other corner, right? And then erase all of the little inside lines that you don't need anymore. A little vertical line, that little piece of your vertical line that comes up into that area, erase that. Okay. Okay. So there's one other thing that we have to do is, since the bottom of the window, this window spans, it goes over the horizon line and a part of it is also under the horizon line, we should see a little bit of the bottom of that sill too. So we're going to do the same thing, use vanishing point 2 and draw. It could be the same amount or it could be more. I'm going to make it a little thicker, saying that from where I'm standing, I see a little bit more of the bottom of that windowsill, the outside bottom of that windowsill. Okay, like that. It's basically very similar to what we drew at the top. So that's a little windowsill on the outside. Now you're going to connect the inside corner of that new little smaller rectangle on the inside with the second corner here on the inside, and erase any of the extra lines now. If it lines up almost perfectly with that other angle, the 45-degree angle that is at the corner of your window molding, that's just coincidental. It doesn't have to line up. Sometimes it just by chance it does. So that's just a coincidence. Okay, from this point of view, you can see where this piece of wood that's for the, or whatever that building material, where that surface meets this different angled surface, you could see the corner of that from this angle, but you can't see it. You can't see that corner from, this corner, that corner over here, because this window frame is in the way because of the angle that we're looking at the window from. Okay, we can use a vanishing point. No, we're not using vanishing point 2 lines. We're just going from this corner to that corner and connecting them. You could use a ruler or you could just do that work by hand. Okay, I think some of my lines were a little crooked, so I'm just fixing them. All right, so basically, the outside, the window molding is right over here. Okay, the sides, what I'm going to do with the sides is just put a little shadow on them, a little shading, just so that you can see the change in angle of the different surfaces. So I'm going to put a little shading on this side here. This is perfectly straight and right, it's just like the window molding. It's kind of facing straight out, so I'm going to leave this little strip in the middle white. But then the underside here, I'm also going to put a little bit of a lighter shading and a little lighter shading here as well. And just to differentiate these 3 angles, I'll just make this one, how about I make the bottom and the top one actually a little bit darker. So basically, shading gives some information. It tells you that there's a change in angle and really makes that obvious because the different values show how light is affected on that surface. Another thing is it enhances the three-dimensional quality of your perspective drawing because of that. So it's basically the other half of the information you need to create a very realistic drawing. You could draw things in perspective and that's fine, and it will make the drawing look more three-dimensional, but the other half of the information is the shading. If you add shading and shadows, it will definitely take your drawing to the next level. So I'm going to go ahead and make the underside of the top of the windowsill a little bit darker just so that you can see it, and it makes it look more realistic, the drawing. Make the side of the inside of the windowsill just a little bit lighter than that surface so they look different. And also this little thin edge to the left on the inside of the house. Now we're on the inside of the house, just so that you can see that that's a different angle than this piece of the window, this part of the window here. I'm putting a little bit of shading on that area as well, that little thin strip on the left. Okay, so that's how to draw a window and make it a double hung window and make it look more three-dimensional. And the next one that we're going to draw, the next thing is we're going to draw a doorway here on the far right. So I'm going to pause right here.